Captain Dae-ho Kim stood on the bridge of the exploration ship Harmony's Edge, watching the massive alien vessel approach through the darkness of space. The ship was unlike anything humans had ever seen. It looked like a crystal mountain floating in the void, glowing with soft blue light. "Contact in 10 minutes, Captain," said Lieutenant Junwoo at the communications station. His voice shook slightly. After 300 years of wondering if humans were alone in the universe, they finally had their answer. Dae-ho straightened his uniform and took a deep breath. As the captain of Earth's most advanced exploration vessel, he would be the first human to speak with aliens. The weight of this moment pressed down on his shoulders like a heavy blanket. "Open a channel when they're ready," he ordered. The main screen flickered, and suddenly Dae-ho was looking at something that made his heart race. The alien had a long, elegant face with silver skin that seemed to shift and move like liquid metal. Its eyes were large and dark, and when it spoke, its voice sounded like music mixed with whispers. "I am Ambassador Velthera of the Velthir Confederation," the being said. "We greet the young species of Earth." Young species. The words stung more than Dae-ho expected. "I am Captain Dae-ho Kim, representing the people of Earth. We welcome you to our solar system." Velthara's expression showed something that looked almost like pity. "Your system is indeed young, Captain Kim. Our records show your star formed only 4.6 billion years ago, quite recent by galactic standards." 2 days later, the formal meeting took place on a space station hastily built in Earth's orbit. Dr. Hee-jun Park, Earth's top expert on ancient cultures, sat beside Admiral Tae-sung Lee at the negotiation table. Across from them, Ambassador Velthera and 2 other aliens waited with barely hidden boredom. "The Velthir Confederation has existed for over 50,000 years, Velthera explained, projecting a star map that showed thousands of worlds connected by glowing lines. "We represent 12 species working together for peace and progress." Admiral Tae-sung leaned forward. "And you're offering Earth membership in this confederation?" "Junior membership," corrected another alien whose blue scales rippled as it spoke. "Your species shows promise, but you must understand your place. You have just learned to travel between stars. We have been doing this since before your recorded history began." Dr. Hyejin studied the star map carefully. Something about it bothered her, but she couldn't quite figure out what. "Tell us about your history. How did your confederation form?" Velthara's eyes grew distant. 50,000 years ago, we experienced what we call the Great Awakening. Before that time, we were simple creatures living on primitive worlds. Then everything changed. We found ruins, technology, and knowledge left behind by an ancient civilization." "What happened to this ancient civilization?" Hyejin asked. "They vanished," the blue-scaled alien replied. "We call them the First Builders. They left behind amazing technology on dead worlds across the galaxy. For 50,000 years, we have studied their remains, trying to understand what they knew." Admiral Tae-sung frowned. "And you never found out what happened to them?" "No," Velthara said, and for the first time her musical voice held a note of sadness. "They disappeared completely. Only their ruins remain, covered in strange writing we cannot read. We call it the silent script." After the meeting, Hyejin walked through the corridors of the space station with Myung-soo Choi, a language expert who had been studying the alien data they shared. His face looked troubled. "Something's wrong with their story," Myung-soo said quietly. "I've been looking at their historical records. There are gaps everywhere, dates that don't match, references to things they claim they don't understand." "What do you mean?" Hyejin asked. Myung-soo pulled out his tablet and showed her a series of symbols. "This is their silent script, the writing they say they can't translate. But look at this pattern here and this one." Hyejin studied the symbols. They looked familiar somehow, like something she had seen before but couldn't quite remember. "What am I looking at?" "I think these aren't alien symbols at all," Myung-soo whispered. "Some of these patterns match ancient Earth languages. Not any language we know well, but the structure is similar to human writing." The next day, negotiations continued. The Velthir offered Earth a standard deal for new species. Humans would provide raw materials like metals and crystals. In return, the Confederation would share basic technology and protect Earth from dangerous creatures that roamed the galaxy. "These devourers," Admiral Tae-sung said, reading from the contract. "What exactly are they?" The aliens around the table grew quiet. Velthara's silver skin darkened. "Ancient enemies of all life. They consume entire star systems, leaving nothing behind. The first builders fought them long ago before they disappeared. And they're still out there? Captain Deho asked. We hope not, the blue-scaled alien said. But the galaxy is vast. We maintain fleets at the outer edges, watching for signs of their return. Dr. Hyejin felt a chill run down her spine. Have you ever seen them? No, Belthara admitted. But we have found dead systems. Places where stars once burned but now only darkness remains. The first builders left warnings about these creatures in their ruins. That evening, Hyejin and Myung-soo worked late in the research lab, studying more of the alien data. The silent script appeared on artifacts throughout Valthir space, always in important places. Temples, control rooms, and what looked like monuments. It's almost like they worship these symbols, Hyejin said, pointing at images of alien temples covered in the mysterious writing. Or fear them, Myung-soo replied. Look at this. Every time the silent script appears, it's in positions of warning or reverence. Like they know it's important but don't understand why. Hyejin pulled up Earth's archaeological databases on her computer. For hours, she compared the silent script symbols with ancient human writings from around the world. Cave paintings, stone carvings, even symbols found in the deepest ocean trenches. Suddenly, she stopped. Her hands trembled as she highlighted a series of symbols. Myung-soo, look at this. The symbols from an underwater cave near Japan matched perfectly with a section of the silent script. Not similar. Identical. That's impossible, Myung-soo breathed. Those cave paintings are over 40,000 years old. The alien said humans are a young species. Hyejin stared at the screen, her mind racing. What if they're wrong? What if they don't know the real history of this galaxy? Outside the space station's windows, Earth turned slowly in the darkness. Somewhere on that blue planet, ancient caves held secrets that might change everything. The question was whether anyone would believe what they had found. As Hyejin saved her research, she couldn't shake the feeling that humanity was about to discover something that would terrify the Valthir Confederation, something that would change their understanding of who really belonged in this galaxy. The young species of Earth might not be so young after all. 3 months had passed since the first meeting with the Valthir Confederation. Dr. Hyejin Park spent most of her time in the research center on the space station, studying the massive databases the aliens had shared with Earth. The more she learned, the more questions filled her mind. The Valthir had given humans access to thousands of years of historical records, star maps, and archaeological data. They claimed it showed their generosity and trust in Earth's new junior membership. But Hyejin was finding things in those records that made her stomach twist with worry. Myung-soo, you need to see this, she called to her colleague, who was working at a computer across the room. Myung-soo Choi hurried over, carrying a cup of coffee that had grown cold hours ago. What did you find now? Hyejin pointed at her screen, which showed an old Valthir star chart. Look at this survey data. It's from 47,000 years ago. See the coordinates? Myung-soo leaned closer and his eyes widened. That's our solar system. Exactly. But look at what the scan shows. Hyejin pulled up the detailed readings. This isn't the Earth we know. Look at these massive structures around the planet. Artificial moons, space stations the size of continents, energy readings that are off the charts. The ancient scan showed Earth surrounded by incredible technology. Rings of what looked like cities orbited the planet. The moon appeared to be hollow, filled with machinery. Even Mars showed signs of massive construction projects. This has to be a mistake, Myung-soo said weakly. 47,000 years ago, humans were living in caves. That's what we thought, Hyejin replied. But the data is clear. These readings show a civilization more advanced than anything the Valthir have today, and it was centered on Earth. She scrolled to the next entry in the database. The scan was dated 2,000 years later. Earth appeared completely different. The orbital structures were gone. The energy readings showed nothing but a primitive planet. The moon looked normal. Mars was dead. Everything vanished in 2,000 years, Hyejin whispered. An entire galactic civilization just disappeared. Myung-soo sat down heavily in a chair. What does the final entry say? Hyejin clicked on the last scan, dated 45,000 years ago. Most of the data was corrupted, but at the bottom was a single line written in the silent script. Below it, someone had added a note in ancient Valthir language. It says, "End of monitoring. Archive sealed by order of the gardener," Hyejin translated. "And this symbol in the silent script? I've seen it before." She pulled up her research on Earth's ancient cave paintings. The same symbol appeared in dozens of locations around the world. Always in the deepest caves, always painted with materials that didn't match anything else found at the sites. The gardeners, Myung-soo repeated. The Valthyr mentioned that name before. They said the first builders sometimes called themselves the gardeners. Hee-jin felt excitement and fear battling in her chest. I think the first builders weren't aliens at all. I think they were humans. The next morning, Hee-jin requested a meeting with Ambassador Valthara. She brought her data files and prepared for a conversation that might change everything. The meeting room was quiet except for the soft humming of the space station's life support systems. Ambassador, I need to discuss something important with you, Hee-jin began. Valthara's silver skin shifted slightly, showing interest. Of course, Dr. Park, what concerns you? Hee-jin activated the holographic display and showed the ancient scan of Earth. We found this in your historical archives. It shows our solar system 47,000 years ago. The ambassador's large dark eyes focused on the display. For a moment, her musical voice was silent. Then she spoke, but her tone had changed. These files are classified. How did you access them? You gave us access to your historical databases, Hee-jin replied. This was in the public archives. Impossible. Valthara's skin darkened to a deep silver black. Those files were sealed long ago. Myung-soo leaned forward. Why were they sealed? What don't you want us to know? The ambassador stood up quickly, her elegant form trembling slightly. Dr. Park, these scans are clearly corrupted. Our dating methods are perfect. Earth could not have supported such technology 47,000 years ago. But the data is clear, Hee-jin insisted, and the silent script notation at the end mentions the gardeners. You told us the first builders sometimes use that name. Valthara's reaction surprised them both. Fear flickered across her alien features. The gardeners are legend, stories told to young ones about the time before awakening. What if they weren't legends? Hee-jin pressed. What if the first builders came from Earth? The ambassador backed toward the door. This conversation is over. These files will be removed from your access immediately. After Valthara left, Hee-jin and Myung-soo sat in stunned silence. Finally, Myung-soo spoke. She's hiding something. Something that scares her. We need to contact Captain Daeho, Hee-jin said. And we need to get to Earth. If the answers are anywhere, they're in those caves. Meanwhile, Captain Daeho Kim was having his own unsettling discoveries aboard the Harmony's Edge. Dr. So Young-han, the ship's geologist, had been analyzing mineral samples collected from around Earth's solar system. Captain, these readings don't make sense, So Young said, showing him her data. I found the same unusual mineral deposits on asteroids, moons, even in the rings of Saturn. What's unusual about them? Daeho asked. They're not natural. The atomic structure is too perfect, too organized. These minerals were manufactured, not formed by natural processes. So Young pulled up a 3D model of the mineral structure, and they're all the same age. 45,000 years old. Daeho felt a chill. The same age as when the first builders disappeared. There's more, Captain. I found the same mineral signatures and rock samples from Earth, deep underground in layers that date to exactly the same time period. So Young's voice grew quiet. Sir, I think someone terraformed our entire solar system. The captain stared out at the stars through the ship's main window. Everything they thought they knew about human history was falling apart. Dr. Han, how long would it take to modify an entire solar system using the technology in those scans? With that level of advancement? Maybe a few hundred years, but the energy requirements would be enormous. You'd need to harness the power of multiple stars. That evening, Daeho called a meeting with his senior staff. The conference room felt smaller than usual as 5 humans tried to process information that challenged everything they believed. Let me make sure I understand this correctly, said Commander In-ho, the ship's first officer. You're telling us that humans had a galactic empire 45,000 years ago? That's what the evidence suggests. Hee-jin replied via video link from the space station. The Valthyr have been lying to us, maybe without even knowing it. Dr. So Young added her findings about the mineral deposits. Our entire solar system shows signs of massive engineering projects from that time period. Earth wasn't naturally habitable. Someone made it that way. Myung-soo appeared on screen next to Hee-jin. I've made progress translating more of the silent script. The symbols aren't random. They tell a story about something called the long sleep and the watchers who wait. Watchers? Commander In-ho asked. Guardians. Protectors. The texts mention a great war against creatures called the Devourers, and preparations for something called the Awakening. Captain Deho rubbed his temples, feeling a headache building. The Velthar mentioned Devourers. They said the first builders fought them. What if the first builders didn't disappear? Hyjin suggested quietly. What if they went into hiding? What if the long sleep was a way to survive until it was safe to return? The room fell silent as the implications sank in. If ancient humans had faced a threat so terrible that they had to hide their entire civilization, what did that mean for the current galaxy? There's only one way to find out for sure, Captain Deho decided. We need to go to Earth. We need to find those caves and see what our ancestors left behind. As the meeting ended, each of them carried the same troubling thought. If humans were the ancient first builders, then the Velthar Confederation had been worshipping and serving their creators for 50,000 years without knowing it. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, the enemies that had forced humanity into the long sleep might still be waiting. The deep caves beneath Mount Jiri in South Korea had been closed to the public for 3 months. Official reports claimed geological instability, but the truth was far more incredible. Dr. Hyjin Park stood at the entrance to a chamber that had been hidden for 45,000 years. The silent script covers the entire wall, Myung-soo whispered beside her. His translation device hummed quietly as it worked to decode the ancient symbols. This is much more complex than anything we found in the Velthar archives. Captain Deho aimed his flashlight at the carved walls. The symbols seemed to glow faintly in the light as if they contained some form of energy. What does it say? Myung-soo's face grew pale as he read from his device. It's a warning. It talks about the long sleep and something called the harvest. The text says, when the children of Earth return to the stars, the Watchers will know the time has come. Dr. So-Young Han was examining the walls with her geological equipment. These carvings weren't made with primitive tools. The precision is incredible, and the rock itself has been altered at the molecular level. Altered how? Hyjin asked. The stone has been turned into a form of crystal that can store information. This entire cave is basically a massive computer hard drive. So-Young's instruments beeped rapidly, and it's still active. There's energy flowing through the rock. Admiral Tae-sung Lee, who had joined the expedition from Earth, studied the cave entrance. Dr. Park, you said the Velthar have been searching for 50,000 years for the first builders. Do they know about places like this? I don't think so, Hyejin replied. Their records show they've never visited Earth before our first contact. They assumed we were a young species not worth investigating. Deeper in the cave system, they found something that made everyone stop breathing. A chamber filled with crystalline structures that reached from floor to ceiling, all glowing with soft blue light. The crystals hummed with power that seemed to respond to their presence. My God, Admiral Tae-sung breathed. How many of these sites are there? Myung-soo checked his translation notes. According to the inscriptions, there are 12 primary sites around the world, all connected, all maintaining something called the Awakening Protocol. Protocol for what? Captain Deho asked. Before Myung-soo could answer, his translation device started making rapid beeping sounds. New text was appearing on the walls, glowing brighter than the rest. The system is responding to us, he said with amazement. It's updating the message. The new text was simpler, written in symbols closer to modern human languages. Myung-soo read it aloud. Firstborn detected. Genetic markers confirmed. Begin awakening sequence. The crystals around them pulsed with brighter light. So-Young's instruments went crazy with readings. Energy levels are spiking. Whatever this system is, it's powering up. We need to leave, Admiral Tae-sung said firmly. Now. But as they turned to go, Ambassador Velthara appeared at the cave entrance with a squad of Velthir soldiers. Her silver skin was darker than they had ever seen it, and her musical voice carried a note of desperation. Stop, she commanded. You do not understand what you are doing. Captain Deho stepped forward, placing himself between the aliens and his team. Ambassador, this is Earth territory. You have no authority here. We have authority everywhere the first builder's technology appears, Velthara replied. For 50,000 years we have guarded their secrets. We cannot allow you to activate systems you do not understand. Hyejin moved to stand beside the captain. You mean systems you don't understand? This is human technology, isn't it? The first builders weren't aliens. They were us. The ambassador's dark eyes showed something that might have been pain. You speak of things that should remain buried. Why? Myung-soo demanded. Because it threatens your position as the advanced species in the galaxy. Velthara's soldiers raised their weapons, but she held up a hand to stop them. Dr. Choi, you have no idea what forces you are awakening. The first builders did not disappear by choice. They fled. Fled from what? Admiral Taesung asked. The ambassador was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. From the Devourers. From creatures that consume entire dimensions. The first builders realized that their advanced civilization was attracting attention from things that should never have noticed our reality. So Young's instruments detected new energy, signatures approaching the cave from underground. Something's happening. The crystals are connecting to other sites around the world. The awakening has begun, Velthara said with resignation. 50,000 years of careful guardianship ended because a young species could not leave ancient things alone. Heejin felt anger building in her chest. Young species? We're not young. This is our technology. These are our ancestors. You've been pretending to be our superiors while sitting on human achievements for 50,000 years. We were created to be your guardians, Velthara shouted, her careful composure finally cracking. The gardeners made us to watch over their sleeping children until it was safe for them to return. The cave fell silent except for the humming of the crystals. Everyone stared at the ambassador as the implications of her words sank in. Created? Captain Daeho repeated. Velthara's skin had turned almost black with shame. We are not a natural species. The gardeners found us as primitive animals on dead worlds. They enhanced our minds, gave us technology, and assigned us a purpose. For 50,000 years we have maintained their civilization, waiting for the firstborn to awaken. The firstborn, Myung-soo said slowly. That's what the texts call humans. You are the children of the first builders, Velthara confirmed, genetically modified to survive the long sleep. Your entire species was compressed, hidden in a single world until the galaxy was safe again. Admiral Taesung's military mind immediately grasped the strategic implications, and now we're waking up. What happens to the threat that made them hide in the first place? The ambassador's expression filled with terror. Our long-range sensors have detected distortions at the galaxy's edge. Reality itself is beginning to bend and twist. The same patterns we see in the archives from 45,000 years ago. The Devourers are coming back, So Young whispered. Velthara nodded. The awakening process sends signals across dimensions. By activating these systems, you have announced humanity's return to entities that have been searching for you for millennia. Captain Daeho felt the weight of responsibility crushing down on him. How long do we have? According to our calculations, perhaps 1 year before they reach this galaxy's outer systems. But that is only the beginning. They do not simply destroy civilizations. They consume the very fabric of reality, leaving nothing behind but empty space where entire star systems once existed. The crystals around them were now pulsing in a steady rhythm, like a massive heartbeat. Myung-soo's translation device showed new messages appearing on the walls throughout the cave system. The other sites are activating, he reported. Sites in Antarctica, the Pacific Ocean floor, the Sahara Desert. The entire network is coming online. Hye-jin looked around at her colleagues, seeing the same mixture of awe and terror in their faces. We can't stop it now, can we? No, Velthara said sadly. The awakening process cannot be reversed. Your people will begin to remember their true nature. Ancient knowledge will surface in your minds, and the galaxy will prepare for war against enemies that exist partially outside our reality. What about the Valthyr Confederation? Admiral Taesung asked. Will you help us fight? The ambassador straightened, and for the first time since entering the cave, her skin began to lighten toward its normal silver color. We were created to serve the firstborn. If this is truly the awakening we have waited for, then our duty is clear. Some of our member species will not accept this, she added. Learning that we exist only to serve another race will be difficult for many to understand. The Confederation may divide. As they prepared to leave the cave, the crystals sent one final pulse of energy through the chamber. Suddenly, Hye-jin felt something change in her mind. Memories that weren't hers flashed through her consciousness. Images of vast fleets traveling between stars, of technologies that could reshape reality, of desperate preparations for a long sleep. She saw the decision to compress human civilization into a single world, to modify their own genetics so they could survive as a seemingly primitive species until the galaxy was safe again. She felt the terrible sorrow of the gardeners as they prepared to abandon their greatest works and trust everything to their created servants. "I remember," she whispered, and the others turned to look at her with worried expressions. "Remember what?" Captain Deho asked. "Everything," Yijin replied, tears streaming down her face. "We were so much more than we knew, and we gave it all up to survive." As they emerged from the cave into the sunlight, none of them noticed the strange distortions beginning to appear at the very edge of the solar system. Reality itself was starting to bend as ancient enemies turned their attention toward the galaxy that had hidden from them for so long. The long sleep was ending, and the galaxy was about to remember why the first builders had been so afraid. President Minho Park stood in the emergency command center beneath Seoul, watching reports flood in from around the world. The awakening of the ancient sites had triggered responses in 12 locations across Earth, and the effects were spreading faster than anyone had predicted. "Sir, we're getting similar readings from sites in Antarctica, Brazil, Egypt, and the Mariana Trench," reported General Yoonji Kim, head of planetary defense. "Every location shows the same energy patterns and crystal formations." On the main screen, Dr. Woo-Jin Lee, director of the Global Archaeological Institute, appeared via video link from a dig site in the Egyptian desert. Behind him, massive crystal structures were rising from the sand like ancient skyscrapers awakening from sleep. "Mr. President, we found something incredible here," Dr. Woo-Jin said, his voice shaking with excitement and fear. "These aren't just storage devices. They're weapons. The crystals are connecting to form a planetary defense network." President Minho felt his stomach drop. "Defense against what?" "According to the translations Dr. Choi has been sending us, these systems were designed to fight creatures that exist partially outside our dimension. The records call them reality eaters." General Yoonji pulled up a global map showing all 12 sites. "Sir, if these crystals are weapons, they could level entire continents. We need to consider evacuation protocols." "Evacuation to where?" the president asked grimly. "Dr. Lee, how long do we have before these systems are fully active?" "Based on the energy buildup patterns, maybe 72 hours, Dr. Woo-Jin replied. "But Mr. President, there's something else. The people working at these sites are starting to change." The screen switched to show security footage from the Antarctic site. Workers were standing motionless around the crystals, their eyes glowing with the same blue light as the ancient technology. They moved with purpose and coordination that seemed impossible for humans who had never worked together before. "They're not responding to radio calls," Dr. Woo-Jin continued. "But they're not hostile. They seem to be operating the equipment using knowledge they shouldn't possess." Meanwhile, in orbit around Earth, Captain Dae-ho Kim was experiencing his own strange awakening aboard the Harmony's Edge. Memories that felt both foreign and familiar were flooding into his consciousness. He remembered commanding fleets of ships that could travel between galaxies, technologies that could reshape matter at the atomic level, and the terrible decision to abandon it all. "Captain, are you all right?" asked Commander Inho, noticing Dae-ho gripping his chair with white knuckles. "I'm remembering things," Dae-ho said slowly. "Not from this life, but from before. I was Admiral Dae-ho of the First Fleet. I commanded the evacuation when the Devourers first appeared in our dimension." Dr. So Young-han, who was monitoring energy readings from Earth, looked up from her instruments. "Sir, I'm detecting massive structural changes in the planet itself. The crystal network is connecting to systems buried deep in the Earth's core." "What kind of systems?" Commander Inho asked. "Planetary engines," Dae-ho replied, the knowledge coming to him like a half-remembered dream. "Earth isn't just a world. It's a mobile fortress. The entire planet can be moved if necessary." The implications hit everyone on the bridge at the same time. Earth wasn't naturally habitable. It had been constructed as a refuge, a hidden base where humanity could wait out the threat of the Devourers. "Captain," So-young said urgently, "I'm detecting temporal distortions throughout the solar system. Space itself is starting to bend around certain points." Dae-ho felt a chill of recognition. "They're coming. The Devourers have found us." On Earth, Myung-Soo Choi was working frantically to translate the flood of new information appearing on every crystal surface around the world. The ancient texts were updating themselves, providing warnings and instructions as if the systems could sense the approaching danger. "Dr. Park, you need to see this," he called to Hye-jin, who was studying energy readings from the Korean site. The newest text was written in symbols that seemed to shift and change as they watched. "It's a battle plan," Myung-soo said, his voice filled with awe. "The first builders left detailed instructions for fighting the Devourers." "What did the instructions say?" Hai-jin asked. "The enemy exists in multiple dimensions at once. They can't be fought with normal weapons because they don't exist entirely in our reality. But the crystal networks can create dimensional barriers, trapping them in spaces between realities." Hai-jin felt more memories surfacing in her mind. She remembered the first time humanity had encountered the Devourers. Entire solar systems had vanished overnight, consumed by creatures that fed on the energy that held reality together. "The barriers require massive amounts of power," she said. "The knowledge coming from memories that weren't her own. That's why they built the planetary engines. Earth itself becomes the power source." Suddenly, alarms began blaring from their equipment. The space station orbiting Earth was detecting massive energy distortions at the edge of the solar system. Admiral Tae-sung's voice came over the communication system from the space station. "All teams, we have a problem. Long-range sensors are showing reality distortions near Pluto's orbit. Space is bending. Through their telescopes, they could see it happening. Stars near the edge of the solar system were flickering and changing position. Space itself looked like water with something massive moving beneath the surface." "How long before they reach Earth?" President Minho asked over the global communication network. "At their current rate of approach, 6 days, Admiral Tae-sung replied. "But time seems to work differently around them. They might arrive sooner or later than our calculations suggest." Ambassador Valthera's ship appeared on approach vectors to Earth. When she contacted the command center, her musical voice carried notes of both fear and determination. "President Park, the Valther Confederation has received our report. Some member species are fleeing to distant galaxies. Others want to fight alongside humanity, but many are struggling to understand their purpose now that the truth has been revealed." "What about you, Ambassador?" the President asked. "We were created to serve the firstborn until their awakening. That time has come. The Valther will stand with Earth, whatever the cost." Dr. Wu Jin's team in Egypt made a disturbing discovery as they explored deeper into the crystal complex. "Mr. President, we found records of the last war against the Devourers. According to these files, it lasted 3,000 years. Entire star systems were evacuated. Billions of lives were lost. But humanity won," General Yoonji said hopefully. "Not exactly," Dr. Wu Jin replied grimly. "The first builders didn't defeat the Devourers. They found a way to hide from them. The long sleep wasn't just about preserving human civilization. It was about becoming invisible to creatures that hunt advanced technology." The horrible truth sank in around the command center. By awakening their ancient technology, humanity had made themselves visible to enemies that had been searching for them for 45,000 years. "The crystal networks are our only hope," Hai-jin reported from the Korean site. "But they require human operators who can access the genetic memories locked in our DNA. Not everyone can handle the awakening process." As if summoned by her words, reports began coming in from around the world. People living near the crystal sites were experiencing spontaneous awakening events. Some gained incredible knowledge and abilities. Others suffered mental breakdown from the flood of ancient memories. "We're getting reports from all major cities," General Yoonji announced. "Approximately 1% of the population is showing signs of awakening. They're displaying knowledge of technologies we've never seen before." Captain Daeho made a decision that would change everything. All ships returned to Earth immediately. "Begin evacuating non-essential personnel from the crystal sites. We need to prepare the planet for what's coming." "What exactly is coming, Captain?" Commander Inho asked. Daeho closed his eyes and let the ancient memories guide his understanding. "War. Not just for Earth or the galaxy, but for the right of our reality to exist. The Devourers don't just destroy civilizations. They unravel the fabric of space and time itself. And if we lose, there won't be anything left to remember that we ever existed." As the first day of the awakening ended, Earth had become something it had never been in recorded human history. A fortress world preparing for a war that would determine the fate of existence itself. The long sleep was over, and humanity was about to face the nightmare that had driven their ancestors into hiding. The question was whether 45,000 years of preparation would be enough to save not just Earth, but reality itself from enemies that existed beyond the boundaries of normal space and time. In the crystal chambers around the world, the awakened humans worked with mechanical precision, following instructions encoded in their genetic memory. They knew what was coming, and they knew that this time, there would be nowhere left to hide. The transformation of Earth had accelerated beyond anyone's expectations. Dr. Hai-Jin Park stood on a platform that had risen from the ocean floor near Hawaii, watching massive structures emerge from beneath the waves. What had once been empty ocean now revealed itself as a hidden spaceport the size of a small continent. The awakening is happening faster than the projections indicated, she reported to the Global Command Center. The planet is remembering its true nature. Around the world, similar revelations were unfolding. The Sahara Desert had revealed itself as a massive solar collection array. The Himalayan mountains contained weapon systems that could target objects in other dimensions. Even the moon was changing, its surface opening to reveal the mechanical systems hidden beneath for 45,000 years. Captain Dae-ho Kim stood on the bridge of the Harmony's edge, but his ship was no longer the simple exploration vessel it had been days before. Ancient systems had activated throughout the hull, transforming it into something far more powerful. His crew was experiencing their own awakenings, remembering skills and knowledge from humanity's forgotten golden age. "Captain, we're receiving transmission from the Lunar Command Center," reported Lieutenant Junwoo, whose eyes now glowed with the same blue light as the crystal networks. "Put it through," Dae-ho ordered. The screen showed Admiral Taesung Lee, but he looked different now. His movements were precise and confident, as if he had been commanding space fleets his entire life. "Captain, lunar defense systems are online. We have weapons platforms that can engage targets anywhere in the solar system." "What about the Devourers?" Dae-ho asked. "How close are they?" "Still 3 days out, but the reality distortions are intensifying. Jupiter's orbit has shifted by 12,000 kilometers. Time flows differently in the affected areas." Dr. So-Young-han looked up from her geological scanners. "Captain, I'm detecting massive changes in Earth's core. The planetary engines are spinning up. If these readings are correct, the entire planet could be moved at near light speed." The implications were staggering. Earth wasn't just a fortress world. It was a mobile battle station capable of traveling between star systems. Humanity's ancestors had built the ultimate fallback position, a planet that could flee if the war went badly. Meanwhile, the Valthir Confederation was experiencing its own crisis. Ambassador Velthara met with President Minho Park via secure communication from her ship, which was now part of a growing fleet gathering near Earth. "President Park, I must inform you that the Confederation is breaking apart," she reported, her silver skin showing patterns of distress. 3 member species have fled to distant galaxies. The Zoraki are demanding that we abandon Earth to save ourselves. Only 5 species have agreed to stay and fight. "What about your own people?" the president asked. "The Valthir are divided. Some believe we should honor our original purpose and serve the firstborn. Others feel we have earned the right to make our own choices after 50,000 years of guardianship." Velthara's musical voice carried sadness. "For the first time in our recorded history, we are experiencing civil conflict." President Minho felt sympathy for the alien ambassador. "Whatever you decide, we're grateful for everything your people have done to preserve our legacy." "There is something else," Velthara continued. "Our deep space monitoring stations have detected other awakening signals from distant galaxies. Earth is not the only refuge world the first builders created. Humanity survived in multiple locations." The revelation sent shockwaves through the command center. General Yoonji Kim immediately understood the strategic implications. "How many other human populations are out there?" "We count at least 12 distinct awakening signatures," Velthara replied. "But the Devourers are moving toward all of them simultaneously. This is not just an attack on Earth. It's a coordinated assault on every surviving human population." Dr. Woo Jin Lee's voice came through from the Egyptian Crystal Complex, where he was working with a team of awakened humans to decipher the most complex ancient records. "I've found something important. The crystal networks on different worlds can be linked together. If we connect all the human refugee worlds, we can create a dimensional barrier network spanning multiple galaxies." "What would that accomplish?" President Minho asked. "According to these records, a galaxy-spanning barrier network could trap the Devourers in a dimensional pocket, cutting them off from the energy sources they need to exist in our reality." "But Myung-Soo Choi," who was monitoring the translation systems, discovered a troubling detail. There's a problem. The barrier network requires a conscious intelligence to operate it manually. Someone has to remain in the pocket dimension to maintain the barriers from the inside. The command center fell silent as everyone understood what that meant. To save the galaxy, someone would have to sacrifice themselves, staying behind in a collapsing pocket dimension while the Devourers were trapped inside. Captain Deho felt the weight of his ancient memories pressing against his consciousness. He remembered making similar impossible choices during the First War. How many people would it take to operate the network? The records indicate a single individual with sufficient awakening could handle the entire system, Dr. Wu Jin replied. But the mental strain would be enormous, and there would be no way to escape once the pocket dimension sealed. As Earth's transformation continued, the awakened humans working at the crystal sites began reporting strange experiences. They were not just remembering their own genetic heritage, they were accessing a collective memory network that connected all human consciousness across space and time. Ijin experienced this phenomenon firsthand while working at the Korean site. Suddenly, she was not just Dr. Hai-Jin Park, archaeologist. She was simultaneously every human who had ever lived, experiencing the memories and knowledge of billions of individuals across 45,000 years. I can see them, she whispered to Myung-soo, who was having his own overwhelming experience of expanded consciousness. All the other refuge worlds, humans who have been waiting in hidden places throughout the galaxy. Can you communicate with them? He asked. We are communicating. We're all connected now. The barriers between individual consciousness are breaking down. This collective awakening was happening to humans across Earth. Scientists in Antarctica were accessing the memories of ancient engineers. Military personnel were remembering strategies from wars fought before recorded history. Ordinary citizens were discovering they carried the experiences of galactic explorers in their genetic code. But the process was not without cost. Hospitals around the world reported that some people could not handle the flood of memories and were experiencing complete mental breakdown. The awakening that was saving humanity was also destroying some of those it was meant to protect. Ambassador Velthara made her final decision about the Valthir Confederation's involvement. President Park, I am ordering all loyal Valthir ships to integrate with Earth's defense network. We were created to serve the firstborn, and we will fulfill that purpose. What about your people who want independence? General Yunji asked. They are free to make their own choice, Velthara replied. But I know what my choice must be. The ambassador's ship approached Earth's orbital defense platforms. As it docked, Velthara felt something she had never experienced before. The touch of human consciousness through the collective memory network. For the first time in 50,000 years, the Valthir were truly connecting with their creators. It is overwhelming, she reported as the mental link established itself. I can feel the memories of the gardeners who created my species. I understand now why they made the choices they did. As the second day of Earth's awakening ended, the planet had become something unrecognizable. Continents had shifted as massive machinery rose from beneath the surface. The atmosphere itself was changing, becoming charged with energy that could power weapon systems spanning light years. But in the distance, space continued to distort and bend as the Devourers approached. Reality itself was breaking down at the edges of the solar system, and time was running out for the final preparations. Captain Deho stood on his transformed bridge, looking at displays that showed the positions of 12 human refugee worlds across the galaxy. Each one was awakening, each one preparing for the same desperate battle. All refuge worlds are reporting ready status, Lieutenant Jun Woo announced. The dimensional barrier network can be activated on your command. And the volunteers for the manual operation? Deho asked quietly. 47 individuals have stepped forward from the various worlds. All have achieved full awakening and understand the cost. Deho felt the ancient memories guiding his decision. He had been a fleet admiral before, and he had always known that sometimes the greatest service required the ultimate sacrifice. Signal all refuge worlds, he ordered. The final battle begins tomorrow. As Earth continued its transformation into a weapon capable of fighting enemies from beyond reality, the collective human consciousness prepared for a war that would determine whether their species would survive to see another dawn. The long sleep was ending, but the awakening might cost humanity everything they had fought to preserve.